Imagine an empire so powerful it ruled nearly half the world's population, an empire that connected Africa, Asia, and Europe thousands of years before modern globalization even. But somehow most people barely talk about it. This was the Persian Empire, history's forgotten superpower. No narration, dramatic music hit. When people think about ancient civilizations, Rome and Greece usually dominate the conversation. But long before Rome became powerful, Persia had already built one of the greatest empires the world had ever seen. At its peak, the Persian Empire stretched from Egypt all the way to India. It controlled millions of people, dozens of cultures, and some of the most important trade routes on Earth. But somehow most people barely talk about it. This was the Persian Empire, history's forgotten superpower. Persia wasn't just about conquest. In this video, we're going to explore how the Persian Empire rose to power, the kings who changed history, the famous wars against Greece, and the surprising legacy Persia left behind. And trust me, some of these stories sound almost unbelievable. The story begins over 2,500 years ago in the region we now call Iran. Back then, the Persians were just one small group, among many powerful kingdoms in the Middle East. The Assyrians were feared for their brutality. Babylon was wealthy and legendary, and the Medes controlled large parts of the region. But then came a leader named Cyrus. Imagine an empire so powerful it ruled nearly half the world's population. Around 550 BCE, Cyrus rebelled against the Median Empire, and won. That victory launched one of the fastest imperial expansions the ancient world had ever seen. Within years, Cyrus conquered Lydia, then marched toward Babylon, the most famous city on Earth at the time. But here's what made Cyrus different from many conquerors. Instead of destroying Babylon, he showed respect toward its people and traditions. He even freed enslaved groups, including the Jewish people who had been exiled in Babylon. The famous Cyrus Cylinder describes these policies, and many historians see Cyrus as one of history's most enlightened rulers. By the end of his reign, Persia had become the largest empire the world had ever seen. But conquering territory is one thing. Keeping an empire together, that's where Persia became truly revolutionary. The Persians divided the empire into provinces called satrapies. Oh, prevent corruption. The king sent royal inspectors known as the eyes and ears of the king. Goods, ideas, technologies, and cultures flowed through Persian territory like never before. At one point, nearly 44% of the world's population lived under Persian rule. Just imagine that for a second. Nearly 1 out of every 2 people on Earth lived inside the Persian. But eventually, Persia's expansion brought it into conflict with another rising civilization, the Greeks. The conflict between Persia and Greece would create some of the most famous battles in human history. In 490 BCE, Persian forces landed near the Greek city of Marathon. The Greeks were badly outnumbered, but against all odds, they won. That victory inspired the modern marathon race we still know today. 10 years later, Persia returned with an even larger army under King Xerxes. Ancient stories claim Xerxes ordered bridges built across the sea so his army could march directly into Greece. And then came one of history's most legendary battles, Thermopylae. That victory inspired the modern marathon race we still know today. 10 years later, Persia returned with an even larger army under King Xerxes. Ancient stories claim Xerxes ordered bridges built across the sea so his army could march directly into Greece. And then came one of the world's most legendary battles, Thermopylae. A small Greek force led by King Leonidas held off the massive Persian army in a narrow mountain pass. The Spartans were eventually defeated, but their resistance became legendary. Even today, over 2,000 years later, people still talk about the 300 Spartans. Eventually, the Greeks managed to stop Persia's invasion. But even after these defeats, Persia remained one of the richest and most powerful empires in the world. Persia wasn't only about war. It was also a civilization filled with art, science, architecture, and innovation. One of Persia's greatest cities was Persepolis. The Persians also built advanced underground water systems called qanats. Some still function today. But by the 4th century BCE, Persia began weakening from internal struggles and political instability. Then came a young conqueror from Macedonia, Alexander the Great. The mighty Persian Empire had fallen, but its influence never truly disappeared. The Persian Empire changed the world in ways many people still don't realize. It connected continents, built advanced governments, encouraged trade, and influenced civilizations for centuries. It wasn't just another empire. It was one of history's greatest superpowers. Tell us in the